Hello everyone, this afternoon on The Marketplace, a human rights court in Accra dismisses application by Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum and GN Bank over the revocation of the bank's license. Also coming up, Africa Center for Energy Policy describes decision to impose VAT on electricity consumers as ill-timed.
What we need to focus on is making sure that those who are not paying pay. We are able to account for the power that is generated. We have the systems to do that. And once you be able to clean up that space and being able to optimize the tariff so that it is much more less burdensome.
And World Bank Board approves $300 million for Ghana to support some budgetary projects and stabilize the economy. Thanks for being with us. Details coming up. And thanks for being with us, everyone. A human rights court in Accra has dismissed the application of Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum and GN Bank over the revocation of the bank's license. According to the court, the Bank of Ghana's action was reasonable and not actuated by malice. Court correspondent Richard Kojinyako joins us on phone with more on that. Richard, what transpired in court today?
From the broader scale, and when the case was called, the court indicated that the Bank of Ghana was carrying out its lawful mandate in the interest of the shareholders and the larger interest of the public and could not be faulted. In fact, after the court declared that the applicant had the requisite capacity and had properly invoked the jurisdiction of the court, the judge proceeded to deal substantively the issues of one, discrimination raised by Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum and the GN Savings and Loans through unreasonable behavior they claim exhibited by the Bank of Ghana, and three, unfairness and violation of the administrative rights of the applicant. But on the issue, so let's take them one after the other. On the issue of administrative right violation, the applicant, that is Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum and the GN Savings and Loans, asserted that an honest assessment by the Bank of Ghana would have proved that GN Savings and Loans was solvent, contrary to the Bank of Ghana's assertion that the entity was not solvent. In fact, they claim that if the debt owed them by government was paid, the capital adequacy ratio would have been met. So this is a quotation. If the Bank of Ghana had taken into consideration the financial circumstances of the company and the fact that government owed them, they would have seen that the company was solvent. That's the lawyer for the GN Savings and Loans and Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum. So the applicant dissatisfaction on the basis of miscalculation, they said that the Bank of Ghana miscalculated the thing because they should have taken into consideration the amount of money government owed them. And so based on that, the administrative body, such as the Bank of Ghana, was unfair, unreasonable, and irrational in its administrative functions, and they have no reason to bring it to the Human Rights Court. So that was the first one. But this leg of the argument by Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum and group, and then the GN Savings and Loans was dismissed by the court, and so they proceeded to the other one, where they said that there was an issue of discrimination, the fact that the Bank of Ghana discriminated against them. According to them, they had targeted them in revoking their license. But the respondent, that is the Bank of Ghana, said that they were simply carrying out their mandate, and within that space of time, there were other entities and banks that they closed them down. So it couldn't be possible, and they cannot be crying about discrimination. The fact that other banks and other depositing companies were also closed down at the same time. And so that one, the judge indicated that that one too had to be dismissed. And then it came to the property, the fact that they had to also hold on to their property, and the bank also dismissed them. And so all in all, the application filed by Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum in its entirety was dismissed by the Human Rights Court.
Any reactions from both sides to the ruling of the court?
Well, so I've been speaking to the camp of Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum, and they are shocked at the decision of the Human Rights Court. and they have indicated that they would want to go on appeal. They would have to appeal the decision of the matter. But on the bank of the on the front of the Bank of Ghana, they expressed excitement and they were looking for costs to be awarded against Dr. Papa Kwesi and the GM Bank. And so these are the reactions from both camps.
All right, thanks for the update, Richard Koyonyako, our call correspondent. I appreciate it. On X, the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ASAP, has reiterated the need to improve efficiency in the collection of bills rather than introduce value-added tax on electricity consumption. ASAP argues that blocking the current financial leakages in the system would greatly impact the financial position of the Electricity Company of Ghana. The Executive Director, Ben Boache, said burdening the consumer now with taxes is ill-timed.
That additional tax on consumers, who are about 35% of the total consuming populace, I don't think is going to shift anything. What we need to focus on is making sure that those who are not paying pay. We are able to account for the power that is generated. We have the systems to do that. And once you be able to clean up that space and being able to optimize the tariff so that it is much more less burdensome on the people, then you can then go into these kinds of things to see how do we generate more revenue. Otherwise, you only have a few credible consumers who are always taking the bullet. They're always taking the higher tariffs.
Professor of Finance at the Andrews University, Williams Pepra, he's got an article on the ECG situation titled Strategic Restructuring for Efficiency, proposing the division and partial privatization of Ghana's ECG on the GSC for improved performance and financial stability. You can check it out on myjoyonline.com/business. Good afternoon to you from here, Prof. You say you're not surprised that despite an increase in the selling price of electricity, we rather saw a decline in the revenue of ECG, and the incoming 15% VAT on electricity charge will only worsen the financial situation of the company. How so? You're muted. We cannot hear you, Prof. I don't know what the issue is, but we are trying to resolve that technical issue with Professor Williams Pepra. On the ECG issue, we're going to stick with that because the Ghana Chamber of Mines is asking the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources to proceed with its planned policy of revoking value-added tax on mineral exploration in Ghana. The Trades Union Congress yesterday criticized the Sector Minister Samuel Abu-Jinapor for making commitments to withdraw the revenue measure at the time Ghanaians are being charged a 15% value-added tax on electricity consumption above lifeline levels. The TUC says all governments around the world would rather, in times of crisis, rake in more revenue from gold and entire minerals. The entire mineral sector. Dr. Alban is Secretary General of the TUC. Let's listen to what he said.
Well, let me explain to you again when you are talking about exploration. There are various phases of mining. So you start with exploration. And that phase of exploration, you don't have revenue because you're exploring, as the name connotes. So you are now looking for it. You drill here, you take samples, you take it to the laboratory, you do the analysis. Is it good enough? No, it is not good enough. Oh, I think let me find here, statistically based upon experience, let me look here, let me take a drill rig and drill and find out what is there, take it to the...
Union leaders preparing to give a showdown to government. The Trades Union Congress, the umbrella body for all labor associations in Ghana, say they are unhappy about government's latest decision to impose a 15% value-added tax on energy consumers above lifeline levels. The Trades Union Congress says many of their members who are already overburdened with taxes will be slapped with additional charges after the imposition of this new levy. Dr. Anthony Alban is Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress.
It is worth noting that 30 kilowatts hour of electricity allows the lifeline customers to use only 3 LED bulbs, one electric iron, 1 television, and 1 fan. That, you know, and I want to emphasize that this 30 kilowatt hour thing, lifeline, it was 50 since the early 90s. Then in 2022, PURC changed it from 50 to 30. They did it quietly. We note that since 2022, electricity tariffs have gone up by 73%. So in 2021, if you were paying 100 Ghana cedis, now that same customer is paying 173 Ghana cedis.
But there's a caution to government, a threat of labor unrest if government fails to totally reverse the policy.
So today, organized labor, we have come together again, and our message to government is very simple. We cannot pay.
But responding to the concerns, the Ghana Chamber of Mines said it will be engaging the TUC to educate them on their advocacy on the reversal of value-added tax on mining exploration. Chief Executive Suleiman Kone tells Joy News' Blessed Suga that it is near criminal for anyone to impose taxes on investors' money being used for a highly risky venture of minerals exploration. He explains why.
There are various phases of mining. So you start with exploration. And that phase of exploration, you don't have revenue because you're exploring, as the name connotes. So you are now looking for it. You drill here, you take samples, you take it to the laboratory, you do the analysis. Is it good enough? No, it is not good enough. Oh, I think let me find here, statistically based upon experience, let me look here, let me take a drill rig and drill and find out what is there, take it to the laboratory, do the assaying. And so that phase of mining, there's no revenue. So where is the profit coming from? There are a number of companies who have come to this country. And when I'm talking about companies, not just foreign companies. In fact, if you go to Minerals Commission, about 50% of the exploration tenements are held by Ghanaians. You understand what I'm talking about? So for us, it is not a white investor or a black investor. We are talking about that phase of mining, how critical it is for the future of our economy, of our country. And all we are saying that for that phase of mining, there's no revenue. So this is expensive capital coming into the country. And even before they make a commercial find, you are standing at the gate and saying, no, give me so much of it. And we are saying, morally, ethically, and that's about 20%, a little above that, of that amount which has to go into exploration. Ethically, morally, it is wrong.
Okay. But I'm sure you've listened to the Trade Union Congress. You watched them address the press yesterday. If there's a response to them or an education sort of, if you want to put it that way, on the situation, what would you tell them based on the concerns they are raising?
I think we would love to have more intimate conversations with them. The mineral resources belong to all of us. And ideally, we should all have a say regarding how these resources are actually, managed. Unfortunately, it's not everybody who has the understanding of the industry, and that's why we do a lot of advocacy. So our expectation is that they could come close to us, or we would even reach out to them and say, look, let's have a conversation. We are talking about a dedicated phase of mining, which is exploration. If indeed we believe that mining is important to us, sometimes we make the argument, without mining, probably our exchange rate will be around 15 or even more than that. Because when you are talking about gross merchandise export, we've been number one for so many years, even when you add other segments of the other sectors of the economy, whether it is cocoa, oil and gas, they pale into insignificance compared to the mining industry. I guess the probability of making a commercial find is so low. So for me, it is near criminal even to say that you bring your investment capital into the country, whether a foreigner or not, start exploration, and then even before you even make a commercial find, government is at the door and say, pay VAT on it. I don't think that is a good thing to do for our country. And I think it's a good thing for government to revisit this subject matter. At the end of the day, we'll have the dividends through the payment of corporate taxes, royalties, and employment, and even overall value retention within the country. If you are talking about local content, yesterday we had a conference about local content. Would you talk about local content if you don't have exploration? Like I said, all else depends on successful exploration. So everything we are talking about in the industry, all the linkages, the corporate social investment, everything relies on exploration. And I think it's important that we have a reprieve for that segment of mining.
Well, next, the World Bank Board has approved $300 million to help support some budgetary projects and stabilize Ghana's economy. The support, which comes under the Development Policy Operation, is expected to help Ghana's economic recovery and finance some projects identified in the budget. Georgia has more.
World Bank Board says this is the first of several support that will be advanced to Ghana to aid in the recovery of the economy. This $300 million should also go a long way to help restore fiscal sustainability, improve energy sector financing in the country. The World Bank, by this support, is also looking at how domestic revenue can be improved, as well as controlling expenditure. The bank also has the view that it should help in restoring fiscal and debt sustainability that would help in curbing inflation in the country. The disbursement follows Ghana's passing of the first review under the IMF program last Friday by the executive board of the fund. The development should mean that almost $1 billion should hit Government of Ghana's accounts at the Bank of Ghana before the end of this month. That is more than $600 million from the IMF, and then there's $300 million from the World Bank Group. Joy Business also understands that other donor partners are expected to meet in the coming weeks and approve some additional financing for Ghana to help stabilize the economy.
Bank of Ghana's international reserves have witnessed some significant increase after more than $600 million was credited to its account yesterday. It was a transfer from the International Monetary Fund as part of a $3 billion extended credit facility program. The executive board of the fund last Friday approved the disbursement after the country successfully passed the first review under the fund program. This may go a long way to put the Bank of Ghana in a strong position to support the local currency. Now, Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, GIPC, Yofi Grant, says a digitalized informal sector will enhance revenue identification and collection. According to him, the new global tax law will create the needed tax equity for both foreign and domestic businesses. He has been speaking to journalists in Accra.
Well, yes, I mean, tax is a sovereign right of every country, and every country charges taxes. And on the joking side, I mean, any tax is always a problem everywhere because we believe that we are overtaxed. But indeed, I think what has triggered this response is the fact that our tax administration has become a bit more aggressive. But if you compare to other jurisdictions, you'd wonder why our tax rates is so low. Probably less than 16% of GDP compared to the OECD where it's over 25%, and even some of our peers in West Africa, which is above 16%. And so you say that then there must be a gap somewhere. Now, there are two ways. Either we are not collecting the right taxes, or we haven't widened our net enough to be able to, collect the taxes. But as I mentioned to you, the structure of our economy makes it difficult when 85% of your economy is SMEs and SMIs, and a lot of them are informal. And so with digitalization, the view is that we can formalize them and then collect the right taxes and broaden the tax net, as well as collect the right taxes. And I think that is what's important. And in that sphere, I'm not sure the investors are saying they won't pay taxes. No, they will pay taxes. And there's the new global tax law, which says that regardless of where you are, you should pay a minimum tax of 15%. So the question is that they will be taxed.
While you're watching the marketplace, time for the Joy Business Advisory Series. We have been treating topics on financial planning and budgeting to get you prepared to manage your finances in 2024. But one thing you should also plan is to manage your debt. So here to speak with us about effective debt management is Osei Owusu-Ansah Jr., who is Senior Manager, Strategy and Operations at KPMG. Great to have you in the studio. Welcome to the marketplace. So what is effective debt management in simple terms?
Thank you very much, Daryl, for having me. And I think we've spoken about part of it with government and then IMF trying to restructure.
Yeah, a lot.
Exactly. And that also applies to individuals as well. So when we talk about effective debt management, what we are trying to say is how do you organize, control, and utilize debt, right? To make sure that you are able to achieve your financial objectives whilst minimizing your financial risk. So we are saying managing because some people tend to see debt as something bad, right? But debt in itself is not bad. It's a tool towards achieving your financial objective. But we are talking about how you optimize it such that you don't put yourself in distress levels, but then you manage it to enable you achieve your financial objectives.
Yeah, so what's the importance of effective debt management? How does it improve one's personal financial well-being?
So debt management is important, and it's not just about financial well-being, but I think the total well-being of the individual. So just imagine someone owing a lot of people. They tend to even avoid phone calls because it puts their blood pressure up. So effective debt management gives you financial stability. It makes you stable financially. And what financial stability here means is not a lot of money in your account, but then you are able to predict how much is coming in, how much is going out.
Okay.
It helps maintain relationships. You realize that for individuals, a lot of loans we take are soft loans from family, from friends, and all. If you manage your debt effectively and make due your obligations, it helps you maintain those relationships, and it helps towards achieving an overall well-being of the individual.
So what are the debts individuals struggle with, and how can they be managed?
Okay, so I will look at maybe three broad categories. So the first will be auto loans, and I think a lot of people would resort to loans when they are trying to purchase their first vehicle, right? Because it wouldn't make sense for you to save money in an economy like ours. So the first would be the auto loans. And for auto loans, it's one of the things you have to be very cautious of in terms of how you manage it. Affordability when it comes to auto loans goes beyond your ability to be able to pay the loan, but then to be able to service the vehicle as well. So when you are looking at your ability to take an auto loan, look at the servicing aspect as well. So let's consider someone who, for example, lives at East Legon and then maybe works at airport. The person does not meet any potholes. The person probably doesn't even travel outside of Accra, but maybe driving a four-wheel, which he's struggling to maintain and even service. Maybe one of the options you would want to look at is trading it in for a more affordable option, or refinancing the loan by paying off when you receive some windfall cash. Another one we can look at is mortgage. And mortgage is one of the struggles, especially in the current volatility in our economy. When someone takes a mortgage, they have two risks to manage: the interest rate risk and then the exchange rate risk, right? So when you take up a mortgage, what you have to do is to constantly stress test your ability to pay the mortgage. So what stress test here means is look at the various scenarios in terms of these two variables, in terms of how they can change. So looking at exchange rate and interest rate, how bad can it get? Will I be able to service it when it gets that bad? Look at depreciation of the cedi. How bad can it get? Will I be able to service it when it gets bad? Then we can look at personal loans. And personal loans is probably the trickiest one of all, to say, what do I take personal loans for? So maybe as a rule of thumb, whatever you are taking a personal loan for, the return you are getting from it should exceed how much you are paying for the loan in terms of interest. And when we talk about that, you'd want to limit it to needs and not wants, right? So when you look at people making purchases just because another business has made a decision to run a sale or buy now, pay later, you take a loan to service that. And when it comes to needs, let's look at certain things like rent and then maybe delivery of a baby.
Right.
Are these things you should take personal loans for? Because you have some time to plan for it.
And prepare.
So exactly, and prepare for it. So in order to avoid some of these debt distress, you would want to plan effectively around these three broad categories to be able to manage.
Talk to us a bit more about some of the obstacles people encounter in managing their debts.
Right. So one of the key things, and I keep relating it to the current economic situation is the interest rate hikes. So if you realized from 2022 to 2023, people who had personal loans with banks had their repayments restructured somehow. So they had to now pay the loan for a longer tenor, and some of them actually had their repayment amount increased, right?
Okay.
So that's one of the key things when you cannot predict or plan around exchange rate or interest rate hikes. So the other key thing when it comes to looking at debt management as an obstacle is financial literacy. Do people know the kind of products available to them? So for example, do I walk into a bank, take a personal loan and to purchase a vehicle, or I look out for banks that have specific products for auto loans, where maybe I would have to contribute a part of it and then finance it maybe at a cheaper option than personal loans. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the obstacles. And then our inability to be disciplined financially, like I mentioned. The fact that someone is running a sale does not constitute a need on your end as an individual. If you don't need it, the fact that it's on sale doesn't mean you should get it. People would go through extents to be able to afford. So these are some of the obstacles when it comes to financial
so
market.
In 30 seconds, because I have a feeling we're going to have you tomorrow as well to talk about, but we can't finish everything today. What are some of the strategies to effective debt management?
So the first thing you would want to do is to understand your debt position. Where are you at any point in time in terms of your debt obligations? And when people are looking at their debt obligations, they tend to overlook soft loans family and friends have given them. When it comes to paying off loans, I typically would say pay off loans that you can easily access the next time. And this is typically loans from your family and friends. So prioritize those loans. After you've determined your debt position, put a plan around it.
Right.
Which one should I pay first? So you see the banks running a promotion to mobilize deposits because they get deposits cheaper from us. Mm-hmm. So pay the cheaper ones first. Pay the one which has your credibility at stake first.
Okay.
Then you can manage around the others and then keep planning and monitoring those repayments.
We are going to continue this conversation tomorrow. I'm sure there's plenty more to talk about. Osei Usansa Jr., Senior Manager Strategy and Operations at KPMG. I appreciate your time. That's the marketplace. More news on our website, ijoonline.com/business. The day's latest stories over there. And thanks for watching. We'll see you same time tomorrow.